I want to begin by thanking you guys for watching my video. If you support my work, please make sure you go into the description of this video and check out my Linktree link. If you click on that link, it'll expand and you can see all different ways that you can support my work financially. Otherwise, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe this video and leave me a comment. If you do those things, it really helps me out in the ratings and make sure that YouTube will put me to the front of the list when anybody searches certain topics. So again, if you want to support me financially, click on the Linktree link. Otherwise, like, share, and subscribe. All of that helps me out a whole lot. Thanks, and enjoy the video. What's up, everybody? This is DH Thorne here. I figured today's video would be something that I might title Back to Work, Back to Basics. And this is going to be a series of videos probably where I discuss some basics of magic that are probably going to be very useful to you guys. You know, I've often toyed around with the idea of doing magical, video courses for people, similar to what other people do, where they're paid courses. And I may still do that for more advanced things, like working with the shadow people and stuff like that. But I think, basic magic should be something that is basically free. Learning how to do the basics is not something that should be a deep secret. I think it's something that is easy to find if you're willing to look for it. And if you're here, that means you're willing to look for it. I've often had a saying where I don't believe that knowledge costs anything. However, the work to acquire it, that's not free. So whatever that may be for you, however you feel that that's valid for you, this particular stuff I feel is something that should be out there and easy to access, because it helps dispel some of the myths and problems that we have doing magic in general. So let's get started. So this particular video, I'm going to be talking mostly about the operations of cleansing and charging objects with energy. Now, before I really get into the procedures that I like to use, I want to start off by having a brief discussion of what exactly we mean, what exactly my understanding is of charging an object and cleansing it, and why this matters, and some of the things that go into it, maybe some historical context as well. So first and foremost, what I believe, what I understand, my metaphysic, if you will, about what we're doing when we're charging an object, is we are not actually imparting energy to the physical material object. In other words, there is no energy which is transferring from me to a stone or a piece of jewelry or an idol or anything like that, that is in any way, shape, or form like energy that we would see, say, from a battery or an electrical socket. Now, this flies in the face of what a lot of, other contemporary magicians would probably tell you, especially chaos magicians and such, who like to see magic in a rather scientific way. To me, what I believe is actually going on, what I currently understand, if you understand my particular view on reality being a subjective experience in which the objective world is something we agree upon, not necessarily a firm object that is there and then we observe it. In other words, I don't think reality is a thing which we observe from the outside, that the reality is the thing that's real and we are illusion. I think all of it's illusion, including what we think we are. The only thing that we know for sure is real is our consciousness. And I don't believe that we are solipsistic islands up to ourselves. I've been criticized for that. People don't understand what I'm saying. You're not the only person in the world. There's an endless number of people and things, beyond this world that are conscious and self-aware. It's that consciousness is the only singularity. Consciousness is the source. Consciousness is the thing which everything is made up of. So when I'm charging something, what I'm really doing is, my phone's going off, what I'm really doing is I am charging my mental association with energy. So in other words, when I charge an object, we'll take this pyramid, this pillar here that my wife gave me. If I were to charge this with energy, what I'm really doing is I'm not actually putting anything into this object. This object is part of my subconscious, part of my subjective awareness, but it itself is a manifestation of consciousness. In other words, I only perceive it as real because I separate it from all of this other stuff that is also real. The air around me, the body that I am, the energy from that candle, and all of these things, I separate. That's what the mind does. The mind is like a knife, okay? The mind cuts reality into smaller pieces that it can understand more easily. And in so doing, it creates basically egregores, tulpas, thought forms. So this actually is a blob of stuff which I've encapsulated in my mind as a thought form which represents this crystal, which is I forget the exact name of it. This wasn't when my wife gave it to me. I think she said it was a it might be a hematite quartz. I'll have to look it up. It was pretty cool. I do enjoy it. It's pretty neat. Really good for root chakra. That much I remember. So I'll have to look it up again. But so I haven't used it much as anything other than an ornament, and I probably won't necessarily be charging it today. But if I was, I'll be showing you the method that I would use. So what am I charging then? If this is not real as a quartz crystal, if this quartz crystal is really a thought form that exists in my own perception, and in others, other people will agree it's a quartz stone, but their version of it's going to be completely different of mine, even though we'll agree on what it is. In other words, there's a point where your subjective reality overrides anything that anybody else's objective reality will tell you about it. Until you hold this in your hand, you have no idea what it weighs. And even if I told you what it weighs, even if I handed you something that weighs the same, it wouldn't be the same. There's always going to be a fundamental difference between my experience and yours. So what am I charging then, if this doesn't necessarily exist independent in the way that we think? What am I imparting to it? Well, I'm not actually imparting anything to it. What I'm actually doing is, in my own subjective reality, my own bubble of space-time, that is my personal timeline, my own personal reality. What I'm actually doing is I am charging the object in that personal sphere. This is why it's so difficult for other people to sense accurately what has been done to an object spiritually, energetically. Sometimes you can. Some people are better at it than others. For some people it's a gift, for some people it's a curse. But for the most part, even people who are sensitive are very inaccurate about it. I've done many tests with this. I've gathered people, way in the past who claim to have great energy sense. A lot of them are fakes, frauds, and scammers, and they really can't sense anything. I've sent objects which I've charged like crazy, and they haven't sensed anything, which made me think, hey, maybe I'm bad at this. Whereas I've sent people objects that have not been charged, and they hoot and holler and roar about how powerful they were when they picked them up. So what's really being charged then is your perception of the object, your own energy body. Think of it this way. If this object exists as it is, only in your conscious awareness, only in your mind world, only in your subjective world, then when I charge this, I'm charging it as an anchor. This is why in Become the Maelstrom I discuss things in terms of anchors. I call things anchor objects because they're conscious anchors. They're anchors for your consciousness. So when I charge this, I am sort of creating we'll call it a mental spiritual link, okay? A subconscious link with this manifestation of quartz that I think it is. So in other words, I'm creating a link to the tulpa, which I think this is, the egregore that I think this is. And I'm charging that with energy. So it's energized in my own conscious field, my own psychic field. When given to someone else, that's, again, not to say it won't be charged for them, but what's really acting is my own consciousness. When they pick this up and hold it, if they're sensitive to this energy, what they're probably picking up on then is not the object's energy per se. It is not necessarily this object's independent energy. It's actually me. My connection is what they're picking up. Now, some will say that you can sever that connection then, or that I'm getting it completely wrong and that the object is getting charged like a battery. If that's really the worldview you want to live in, so be it. It will still work for you either way. My personal worldview is when I'm charging this object, I'm not charging the object, I'm charging the tulpa in my mind that this object represents, that is represented by this object, or that the tulpa represents. However you want to phrase that, the thing that's being charged is the idea. This is how all magic works to me. Okay, so it's a little different. It's also a lot more rational. It's a lot easier to pass the sniff test of rationalism, because you're not necessarily doing something that's physical. You're not actually charging this with physical energy necessarily, although that can be part of the process, and we'll get into that in a moment. But what we're really doing is charging our idea of it. That alone, because you are ultimately the thing that manifests what your intentions are. In other words, magic doesn't work independently of you. You are magic. Everything about you is magic. Everything you do is magical. You just don't realize it because you're caught in this mundane, illusionary world that you're in. Reality is everything. Every breath you take, every step you take, everything you do has a magical element to it, because it's all part of Maya. And one of the translated meanings of Maya is magic. Okay, so this exists within you. This object exists within you, and no one else will see it the same way, and that goes for your energy as well. Some people can, to some degree. It does happen. It's just not the same thing as reaching out and picking something up and feeling it. It is something that is intuitive. It is an intuitive understanding that it's charged, and then your body will kind of put in its place a feeling. It'll kind of translate that intuition into a feeling. And there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you experience, don't fight it, go with it. That's a beautiful gift. It's not one I really have that strong. If I pick up an object, I don't go, hey, you charge this. It doesn't work for me that way. My magic is way more, we'll say, egocentric, I guess, in the sense that a lot of what I do, it's not like it's out there in the world. I feel like it's in me, and then I project it both ways. It's projected in and out, okay? There's a projection going on. And it rationalizes that way a lot better, because that means whatever I do doesn't necessarily have to be felt by anybody. It's not something that is meant for everyone. It's actually a higher sense. It's an internal sense. It's a sense of the astral. And the astral is always seen through an internal lens, because ultimately that's where the astral is. It's in all of our internal universe, and we all have our own version of it, and it's still real. It's still there for us. All right, so let's get into it. So for charging an object, usually what you want to do is you want to cleanse that object. Now, cleansing an object there's a million different ways to do it. Depending upon your tradition and belief system, it could be something as simple as saying a prayer over it. It could be something as simple as bathing it in cold running water, either from your tap or from a lake or a river or something, preferably moving water like a river. It could be bathing it in moonlight. It could be putting it out in the sun for a while. Of course, anything you put in the sun, you've got to watch out that it's going to get sun bleached. You don't want that. That'll ruin a lot of things. Even things you wouldn't think be damaged by it will be. It doesn't matter how dark the pigment. Sun bleaching is a thing, okay? It does happen. It doesn't take that long either for some substances. You certainly can't wash everything. Like selenite, you can't run that in water. It'll disintegrate. So certain things can't be treated the same way. So one of the methods that I prefer to use, there's either the mental method, which is I will mentally envision. It's almost like prayer. It's almost like doing a lesser banishing ritual, because that's what it does. You can do an align and clear over it. You can mentally focus on it and visualize the energy being dispersed and touch it and channel it out. There's a lot of ways you can do this, but let's cover the easiest and the one that your subconscious is most likely to pick up on. One of the easiest ways that I've done it growing up, and still to this day, is I will bathe it and fumigate it in sacred smoke, basically incense. Now, some cultures will tell you only real herbal incenses, like actual sage leaves, actual Palo Santo, actual copal wood, all that kind of stuff is the only thing you can use. Whereas others will say any kind of smoke that's been given an offering to a spirit or anything like that will be fine. Or any flavor of incense, for that matter, will be fine. I'm sort of closer to that latter category, because my understanding of incense fumigation is it actually travels back in time to when the ancients discovered that if they fumigated with things with smoke, it would cleanse them. For those of you who know a little bit about outdoor living, if you're sort of into survival stuff and bushcraft, you know that one of the great ways to clean your body and your clothing when you don't have ready access to soap and water as easily is to take smoke baths. Smoke actually has the effect of killing a lot of germs and bacteria. It fumigates you and fragrances you. Smoking meat will make it preserved and it will last a lot longer. So the ancients, just like with salt, salt was discovered to be very similar, which is why salt has a very similar cleansing, purification effect. This is why salt is used as a purifying element in your magic. This is why when you have your altar, if you put salt around, either sprinkling it or making patterns in it or having your offering bowl filled with salt, this tends to cleanse it, okay, and purify the energies. Some would say this doesn't work well with demon magic, whereas others say it's perfectly fine because demons aren't evil, and whatever you want to do. Again, this is my point where I keep telling you, everything here is subjective and internal, okay? If you try to make it a tradition that only this way is real, you get into problems where nothing seems to work, because it's just like with Christianity. When people criticize Christianity, which version of Christianity is the right one? Which Christians are going to heaven? Is it the Seventh-day Adventists? Is it the Baptists? Is it the Unitarians? Who's going to heaven, right? In the same sense, let's not get trapped in that same religiosity view. Let's try to understand on a metaphysical level what's really happening, how this is really working. My personal feeling is, and this is why it's going to work for me, is that it's me that's doing it, okay? It's not some universal thing that is true for everybody. The only thing I think is universal, in fact, is that it's individual for each of us. That's the universal truth of it. So for me, using smoke is an effective way because in my mind, I understand what smoke does. The symbolism of burning incense smoke, be it just regular stick incense or something fancy, is the same. It's smoke, and that tends to purify things. Bugs will leave things. Again, if you understand bushcraft and stuff, you'll know that smoke can drive away insects, can drive away disease and germs. Very good purification agent, especially when you don't have access to a lot of salt. So we're going to use smoke today just as a demonstration, just so there's something to look at while I'm talking. So I got this really nice incense box that I picked up. I really like this. It's a little dirty. I got to clean it out, but I generally don't clean out my incense bowls and things until they're overflowing. I feel like they contain some essence to them. So it's kind of filthy inside. Some people probably do different, but we're going to do it this way. So we're going to light this. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do it maybe a little bit more correctly. So I'm going to light it on a candle, which I've used in ritual a few times. So we'll let this burn for a moment. And try not to get in the habit of blowing out incense. It's really kind of traditionally customary to either wave it out or otherwise, blow it out with like a hand gesture or something. If you blow it out with your breath, it's considered kind of like an insult in some cultures. But again, that's a personal choice of mine. You don't have to believe in that. All right, so I've got the incense in the box. And this does a nice job of really making that incense waft out in nice patterns. So I really like this box. So I'll let it get going a little bit. So when we're going to bathe something that we want to purify and cleanse in the smoke, that's not a whole lot of smoke, okay? So we're going to want to do this with, something small that won't be necessarily ruined by it. So I'm going to take this bit of smoky quartz. Now, for those of you who understand smoky quartz by itself is a very powerful, protective, and cleansing stone. I like smoky quartz because whenever I use it and hold it, it does have a tendency to just kind of pull out and draw out a lot of the impurities that are bothering me. But that means it actually collects a lot of it. It's kind of like the symbolism is, it's pure quartz that's been polluted by negative energies, right? So let me hold this up so you guys can see it. You can see it's like a darker quartz, right? I love smoky quartz. I think it's cool. So what I'm going to do is I want to cleanse it, right? So what I first want to do is I want to picture in it or understand inside this is a lot of negative crap, a lot of just things that I've put into it that are not good. And this is actually a good way for you to cleanse yourself in the process, because in a way, even though it's all in here, it's still kind of attached to you. Remember what I said before, when you're charging an object, you're attaching something to it. So unless you fully disconnect that connection, it'll still be kind of part of you, right? So cleansing is a good way to get rid of that, right? So we're going to do this, and this is kind of like, so right now, think of this almost like the recycling bin on your computer. And if you delete things, they go in there, and then every once in a while you've got to empty the recycling bin to really be, much better off. It's still there, but it's no longer accessible, right? It's kind of gone. And to really get rid of it, we have to like wipe the drive, but we'll not get into the technical stuff. All right, so what we're going to do is you want to clear your mind, okay? You want to have your mind enter that empty state where you're not really thinking, you're simply fully aware. So For me, that's easy. I can talk while I'm doing it. For most people, it's not. But you want to enter a clear-minded state as best as you can. Understand and accept that this is full of the negativity and things that you don't want it to have. And understand that this smoke is going to cleanse this object fully. And then what you're going to do is when you feel ready, when you feel a connection and you feel ready, you're going to pass it through the smoke. And this can take as long as you want. You can do this for a few minutes, a few seconds, really till you feel like it's done. And while you're doing it, you can feel, like I can feel the smoke. I don't know if you guys can, but I can actually feel smoke touching my skin. I don't know what it is about it, but you can feel it. Not perfectly, it's very subtle, and you know, when it's really wispy, I don't feel it, but when it's like, I really feel it right now. And while I'm doing that, I'm imagining and feeling the energy just being, just like blown away, just pure, just, it's almost as if I went, which is also something people do. I just feel it just going away. Just, it's being purified right now. And it's being replaced by the sacredness of this smoke. It's being replaced by the energy of this smoke. And if you don't want to hold it, you can put it down, like in something like this. You can just let it sit in it for a bit. And it creates kind of an interesting, I don't know if you guys can see that good, but it creates kind of like an interesting pattern going on. We'll let that smoke for a little bit. Now, you don't have to do it for this long. You can do it just for a few moments. I'm going to leave it there because it ain't going to hurt it. It's going to be fine. And then when I feel ready to charge this object, let's say I want to charge this again, then I would follow the next set of steps. So what am I going to do when I charge a crystal like this? Well, if you are the type of person who doesn't have a very strong mental focus, you're still a beginner, you can't really get yourself to really just mentally do things and feel energy that well, there are ways you can kind of cheat a little bit and give yourself physical, mundane things that you can use to help charge things. For example, you could put it again out under the moonlight, out under sunlight. In particular, certain stones, most stones, are receptive to fire a little bit. Now, you have to be careful because some will be damaged by fire. The ones I typically would suggest charging with fire would be like obsidian. You can charge quartz with just about anything, but you have to be careful. You don't want to pass it like in that flame and burn it. You're really just trying to put it in the energy field of the flame. So what I'll do, if I'm going to use this candle as an example, is I'm going to start bringing it closer and closer till that flame, until I start to feel the energy of the flame, not necessarily the warmth. It might feel like warmth, it might be warmth, but I'm trying to reach out with myself and feel the energy that comes off of that flame that's not just the heat, right? Otherwise, I'd be like over here burning my hand. I want to just bring it in proximity. And if I want to pass it through, I do it briefly and quickly, and I just pass it through. And as I do that, it's going to feel a little warmer. Now, all energy is energy, of course. If you take this between your hands and rub it, it's going to get warm, and that can actually have a similar effect. But we're just going with the simplest, quickest, easiest. If you're a beginner, this will work for you. So you can charge this with a little bit of flame, with a little bit of this energy, and you want to feel this energy going into it. If possible, try to feel the energy going into it, through it, and then into you. Because just like any good circuit, you know, like a light bulb, at least a traditional light bulb, doesn't work by electricity going into the light bulb. It's the electricity passing through the light bulb that makes it light up. So in a very similar sense, you want this energy to feel like it's going in and through. Okay, so that's the easy way, right? That's the easy way. But it is not my preferred method. It'll get the ball rolling. You can do this with other substances, water. You can again put it in the smoke and then imagine that the smoke is charging it with energy. There's a lot of different ways you can do this depending upon your tradition. There's really nothing wrong with any of them. I recommend trying them all. You know, I'm an eclectic magician in that sense. Try them all till you feel one that works. But the one that works best for me is when I use myself as the conduit, when I use myself as the object that charges. So if I'm going to charge this, knowing that this stone is really centered on the root chakra, primarily, it's almost like it actually occupies a space between the crown and the root. It's almost like it's like the space that's in between, but it's really closest to the root. what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to connect with my root chakra energetically. I'm going to do some breathing exercises, some visualization or mental gymnastics, however it works for you. Some people have aphasia and they have a difficult time visualizing things clearly. If that's you, you're not unlike me. My ability to visualize comes and goes. It's not that great. Other people, they picture something and poof, it appears right in their vision. I'm not like that. Like I have to, like, it only comes to me for a split second. I can't hold on to visions very long. Instead, I feel things and I intuitively know things. Like that's how it works for me. So I'm going to reach into my root chakra. Now, when you're charging something, again, remember, you're not charging the object, you're charging the idea of the object. This is why it can be so important to get accustomed to an object first, to kind of build up a relationship to it first before you actively charge it. It can be really useful to just have it for a while, for it to be in your hand for a while, to feel it. So that's what I suggest you do. Start by holding it, feeling it, get to know it, touch yourself, even touch your lips. Touching your lips, there's a lot more nerve endings in your lips. So when you touch your lips, you're kind of feeling it in a way. This is why babies and animals will put things in their mouths to kind of get to know them. Be sanitary, of course, guys. But you can touch it to your lips. You can touch it to softer parts of your hand. You can touch it even to less sensitive parts of you and really get a feeling for this stone. And you'll know when you're making a connection. You'll feel like, aha, yeah, I've got this. What I found with stones in particular is the lighter the touch, the better. When I'm barely touching it, but I feel its weight and I feel its pressure and its presence, that's when I feel like, hey, I think I'm making a good connection to it. So once you've made sort of a connection to it that way, you want to reach down into, if you're using my method, you want to reach down into whatever your energy center is. This could be if you're using a soul star because you've supposedly removed your chakra, if you're still using chakra. If you're not using any of that, it's just an auric egg. If you don't believe in that and you just think it's your mind, whatever it is, reach into that place where your really base fundamental awareness is. Your base fundamental awareness of material reality, which is like the root chakra in this case. And you want to connect to that part of you. So you might want to, if you wanted to, you can even use the mantra, the seed mantra Lam. So you could take a breath and you could relax. La. And when you breathe in, you want to breathe in through that root chakra if you can. When you feel like you've made connection with that part of you that is based and centered in your physicality, you'll probably feel a wave of calm. You'll probably feel just really well connected. You won't feel excited. You won't feel like super peace and love. You'll just feel like I'm a mountain. I'm a rock. I am connected to the earth. You might even feel your connection to the earth being really, really strong. And it may take you a lot longer than it takes me. Some people it takes them like a half hour or whatever, but for me it's pretty quick most of the time. So I've connected to that part of myself, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to breathe in through the earth, through my body, through my root chakra, and I'm going to breathe out, and when I do, I'm going to visualize, feel, and know that this object is being charged. And when I say this object, I mean my idea of this object is being charged by this energy. You don't have to hold it. You don't have to hold it in any specific hand. You can hold it in both hands. You can put it out in front of you. You can put your hand over it. However you want to do it. Personally, I believe that energy comes and flows in and out through all parts of your body equally. But for magical purposes, because I think there's some use to specializing a little bit, I'm going to treat my body as a circuit. And this is one of the reasons why I wear a black glove or a gauntlet or a bracelet or something on this hand in magic. It's sort of a subconscious reminder. This is the receptive feminine left hand. This is the emissive right hand. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I might alternate a little bit and take turns, but I'm going to hold this. And if it's a bigger object, maybe it's something like this, I'll hold it differently. Maybe I'll hold it like this. Maybe I'll do this. I'll find ways to hold it where it feels like I'm creating a kind of circuit in the object. Okay, if it's a big sphere, if it's a really big, if it's a person even, I'm going to hold it differently. So for this case, I think I'm going to hold it like this, okay? And you could also put it in the palms of your hands because that's where a lot of your energy comes from. You could hold it like this. So you know what? I think I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to hold it this way because this is like where you get really good connection and a lot of energy. But you could use your fingertips. There's any way you want to do it. So I'm going to breathe in. And I'm going to use the seed mantra again. You can skip that. You can use whatever you want. You can just intone a sound. You can simply just reach down to that part of you or wherever your energy center is. And I'm going to bring energy up through my root, and I'm going to pass it, actually project it with my solar plexus. The solar plexus is here, right where your sternum is, just a little bit below. Some people it's a little lower. It's usually between the belly button and the breastbone. So it's like right around here. Usually it's where your diaphragm is. That's a good place to look for it. And I'm going to breathe in. I'm going to bring in energy through the earth, through my root chakra. And I'm going to project it with an out breath through my solar plexus. And when I do that, it's either going to create a beam of energy from my solar plexus to the object, or I'm going to beam it through my arms into the object, whatever is easier for you. Or if you can't visualize any of that, like I have trouble visualizing, I'm just going to feel it and know it's happening. That's sufficient. If that's how your mind communicates, if that's how your higher self communicates, that's fine. Don't fight it. It's kind of like when someone's left-handed. If someone's left-handed and you try to make them right-handed, it breaks them. Someone who is mentally blind like that, someone who has aphasia or some other reason why they can't visualize very well, trying to force them to visualize, to do magic, is like trying to force someone to write with their right hand if they're left-handed. It's really not right. It doesn't help. You've got to learn to be able to do these things whatever way works for you. It's a lot safer and better for you. It's going to be a lot more powerful. So here we go. So I'm going to breathe in through the root. When I breathe in, I'm visualizing and feeling or knowing that energy is coming in through the floor, through the earth, into my root chakra. And I'm visualizing and knowing that my root chakra is becoming brighter and more powerful, a bright red, bright swirling vortex of energy, or a bright ball of energy. It's just getting bigger and stronger. I'm trying to make my in-breath as long as my out-breath, so that when I'm intoning Lam, I'm saying it about as long as I'm breathing in. Lam. Lam. When I feel like I'm nice and connected and strong, I'm going to feel that energy move up into my solar plexus. Without changing it, I'm just going to project. And I'm going to really bring my awareness to this stone in my hands and to my solar plexus at the same time. I'm really going to really, really vividly feel it. I'm going to move my hands if I have to. I want to really connect to it. Now you probably notice I'm breathing out longer than I'm breathing in. When I'm breathing out longer, that's what I call yin breathing. You're literally pushing energy out of you. It's a way to get rid of energy. Now this feels really warm. It's obviously been in my hand. You may feel tingling. You may feel electrical fields. You may feel magnetic pull or push. You may feel warmth, like absurdly warm feeling. It may, right now it's holding on to that warmth. And my hands actually feel a little colder because I feel like I'm pushing energy, but my palms feel hot, if that makes sense. It's like a weird paradoxical feeling where it's like a warm cold. Now, if you don't charge this with a specific intent, that's fine. Right now, I'm just energizing this. I've purified it and I'm restoring energy into it so that later, if I need this energy, I can use it, typically in the flavor the object, symbolically represents. This represents what Smoky Quartz represents. So therefore, it's definitely a little bit different than, say, regular quartz. Although regular quartz is rather universal, I find that relying on regular quartz for everything is kind of a mistake. It's kind of like, you're not really specializing enough of your intention. It really helps to solidify your intention with things that really represent the energy or the intention you're trying to accomplish. And Smoky Quartz in this case, I don't really have a strong intention for right now. I don't feel like I need to cleanse myself a lot, but if I was, that's what I'd use. Now, if I wanted to charge this with negative energy, like if I wanted to get rid of my negative feelings, when I exhale, I would visualize, feel, know, and believe, and intuitively understand that the negative thoughts and experiences that I'm having are going into this stone. And it almost doesn't matter at all what size it is. If it's a tiny stone, but you feel it's powerful, it'll work just as well as a big giant stone. I am partial to big stones, but small, beautiful stones work for me too. And I'm going to feel like I'm just purifying the air, almost like this is an air freshener. And I'm pushing energy into this. Again, this is, as Smoky Quartz, that's what it's for primarily. It's connecting you to the grounding elements of your energy. And since it is quartz, it's actually connected to the crown in some ways as well. So it's really a cycling grounding. It's kind of like when a lightning bolt strikes. There's a part of the lightning that's reaching up to the clouds and a part that shoots down, or vice versa, but there's always a meeting. And this stone is like the stone where that kind of happens. So this kind of grounds you, but it also reminds you that you're in a higher place. So that's good for this. Now let's say I am charging something for spiritual work with a spirit. Let's say I want to make an idol. That's going to be a little bit different, in which case you're not really going to be using your own energy to charge the object. What you want to do is cleanse it with whatever method you want to use. I would most likely use smoke to fumigate it and to mentally clear it with my own mind. I would visualize it being purified, doing all of that. Then I would perform a ritual in which I would call down a spirit. I would call a spirit into my awareness, either through invocation or into my physical awareness through evocation. However you're going to do it, I would bring a spirit into the ritual. And upon doing so, I would invite that spirit to accept the idol as an offering, to use that idol as a focus from that point forward, so that whenever I gaze upon it, I can make at least an attempt at connection a lot better than just trying to think about it. Having some physical medium to use as an anchor object for your egregore of connection is a great way to do it. And again, just like with the crystal, just like with any other object, what I'm really doing is I'm not actually taking that spirit and physically jamming it into the idol. What I'm really doing is I'm creating a conduit in my consciousness so that when I see this, it's a mnemonic device, so that my subconscious says that's the spirit of whatever. By holding it, interacting with it, using it in ritual, it will automatically go to that same place that it went when the spirit was with me before. And it will make the bridge. It'll be like the rainbow bridge to Nibelheim or whatever. It'll create that conduit, that bridge for our communion to take place better. That's how that works in my personal book of metaphysics. Try this idea. Try it with this type of thinking, and see where it gets you. See if it works better for you than being superstitious and thinking that you're literally transferring some kind of energy that's outside of yourself into an object, when really all you're doing is moving your own energy through the object. Because you have to remember, as a non-dualist, I don't actually feel that this object is separate from me at all. I recognize that everything about this object is within me and I am within it. So when I am making connection to this object and charging it, I'm not taking energy from this fire and putting it in here. This fire is a part of me. This fire is a part of me. And then it's in this object because I have decided that they are connected spiritually. Anyway, guys, hopefully this little video was useful to you. We're getting back to basics. We're doing the basics so that we can really move on. We're getting back to business and going back to basics. So hopefully this was useful to you. Try to explore these things as best you can. Leave me a comment, leave me a question. Hopefully I'll get around to answering it. If not, hopefully another time. Anyway, guys, until next time, mind the shadows.